Hey G-Fans, GojiFan93 here, and well, I am doing another review finally. It's been a while since I've done a review, but so I actually just got finished watching the whole Ultraman series, and wow, what a interesting kaiju series. So this is like, this was the first Ultraman thing I've ever seen. I mean, I've looked at, I've listened to the theme songs, I've played the video games, you guys know that, but this is the first time I get to see where Ultraman came from and, all of that. So, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. There were a couple things when I watched this that really bugged me and that just seemed to not really make sense. But yeah, so anyways, so Ultraman, the first series, the complete first series, came out. It was 1966, and pretty much the whole series spanned 39 episodes. And if you get this collector's thing right here, it's on all the episodes are on 4 discs. The last thing is like a bonus feature or whatever. But so anyway, so it's way different to watch than a movie, because mostly what I do, I watch a lot of the kaiju movies, but this is a TV show, so it's a little bit different, and it gives a little bit better character development, and you get more invested into the characters and stuff. So so I guess first off, the main characters are Hayata, which he's Ultraman. He's the main hero, the main protagonist. We have the captain. Marumutsu, I think is his name, or they call him Kapu, is what they say to him a lot. Well, Hayata is kind of the, he's just the hero. He's the smart guy. He's just well-rounded. He's like the balanced character in this. The captain guy, he's captain. He's like the stereotypical captain who's just, he's barking orders, and he's always trying to make sure that the mission's gonna go well. He follows orders that the higher up command does. And then we have Arishi, which is, and I'm sorry if I mess up these names. It's just they're really interesting. But Arishi is kind of he's just kind of the big gun guy. Like, he always wants to use the guns, and he always wants to kill the monsters that are like there. They have this gun called the spider gun, which from the first episode, he's just been like dying to use this gun like all the time, and it does some damage to the monsters, but it's just funny how he just always wants to use a gun for everything. And then we have Fuji, which is the female character. She's kind of like the radio person. She keeps in contact with them while she's at HQ, while the guys are off doing the mission, and she tells them, oh hey, the monster's over here. It's kind of rare. She joins on some missions, which is really cool. There was actually one episode where she actually got a part. She was actually more of a main character in that part, and I really like that, how they got a female to have more of a part than the male characters. And then, last but not least, we have Edie, which is my favorite character. He's kind of the comedy relief, but he's also the brains. He builds the weapons. He fixes things. He's the inventor, and he tries a lot to get noticed, and just the way that the character is. It's really cool how he just does the things that he does. I don't know, and I strongly recommend you guys watch this in Japanese dub, or in the original Japanese audio, because he sounds hilarious. So that's all. That's the main team that pretty much the main protagonist or the main cast, I guess I would say, for this show. And so these they're called the Science Patrol, and they're pretty much the protectors of Earth from alien invaders, alien monsters, and stuff like that. And so they don't actually. What's kind of cool is that the first episode, they don't actually explain how the Science Patrol was founded, or who founded it, or when it started. It kind of seems like they've had a long history, and so we're kind of just smack dab in the middle of one mission where they go off, and then Hayata's in they call it the VTOL, like this aircraft that they use, this combat aircraft, which is pretty cool looking. And pretty much a monster comes out. I don't remember all the monsters' names because there's like a new monster for every episode, and there's 39 episodes. There's a lot of kaiju in this series, but this kaiju hits his ship and he falls. His ship just crashes into on the ground, and Ultraman, well, pretty much it's really weird. Like, there's this red ball and there was a blue ball. I'm trying to remember the first episode because it was a while since I watched the first episode, but pretty much like Ultraman comes down and saves Hayata because he would have died. And so what Ultraman does is he fuses his life, he kind of sacrifices his life a little bit to give Hayata life, and he just fuses with him. So now Hayata is Ultraman, and pretty much that makes Hayata invincible. I mean, it really does. Like, and it'll show throughout the series. Hayata gets blinded, his leg gets broken, he goes through a lot of injuries, but once he goes like that, he's like automatically good to go. So and so yeah, then we finally get to see Ultraman, fight this monster, which totally rips off Godzilla's roar. It's just at a higher pitch, yeah, it's just a really cool monster brawl. I mean, just got Ultraman fighting him and stuff like that. But here's where the problem of the series comes about. This fight happens like halfway through the episode, and these are about like 20 to 25-minute episodes, I think. So the first half of the episode can get really boring and can really drag on. Unless it's like really drama, like in some of the episodes. Like one of my favorite episodes where it was, I don't remember the titles of each episode, but one of my favorite episodes was the one where they had 5 hours and then 60 monsters were going to come to Earth and invade. Like, that scenario right there was awesome, but it kind of fell apart. But the problem with the series is that the monster fights are way too short, and they end kind of silly. Like, Ultraman, all he really does to kill his enemies is just tosses them around. Like, he just grabs them and throws them on the ground. The monster's on the ground going, and the monster's like, and the monster just dies for some reason, and then he uses his, he goes like that and then blows them up. But it just seems like Ultraman's just way OP. I mean, ridiculously powerful. Like, none of these monsters can do anything to him. But I mean, like, further down the road in the series, Ultraman does come across some enemies that do get some kind of challenge to him, but ultimately Ultraman is really just invincible. I mean, nothing can kill him, really. The weakness though that he has is that apparently that he needs he runs out of energy, and then his little ball, I don't know, it looks like it's like a bunch of crystals or something, but it's in like this circular case, and it starts blinking, it starts going red. It's like dee doo dee doo dee doo, and it's like an indicator saying that he's running out of energy. And apparently, if he runs out of energy, he can no longer fight. And I guess that's gives them the excuse to make really short battles, because Ultraman loses his energy so quickly. It's like 5 seconds into the battle, he's already blinking, and it's pretty crazy how you're like thinking, whoa, he's already like out of energy. That's crazy. But like I said, it's just the battles end too fast, and Ultraman kills his enemies in the most silliest of ways. Now, I know that this was a show that was marketed towards kids, but to me, I feel that half the episode kids would fall asleep because Ultraman does not pop up until halfway in, maybe even later. I mean, some episodes, Ultraman's only in the show for like 5 minutes, and that's it. Now, I actually forgot to say that before the Ultraman series, there was Ultra Q, which didn't have Ultraman at all. It was just the group, and maybe that would give a little bit of backstory of where the Science Patrol came from and anything like that. But we have a show here where it has Ultraman, but Ultraman barely appears. Now, the enemies that really gave a challenge was like Balton. I think he was the second enemy in the second episode. He gave a little bit of a challenge. And then actually all the way at the end of the series, the last enemy was Zeton, which you guys know gives me a hard time in the video games. But in the show, it ended really quickly, and I'll get to the last episode, so there'll be a little bit of a spoiler if you don't want to listen to it, so just a spoiler warning. But yeah, so, I mean, all in all, it's an alright series. Some episodes are so painful to, like, they're not good. Like, there's just some episodes that you watch and you're just like, that was shit. Like, the episode that really stuck out to me was the one with the monster that ate pearls. And apparently Fuji, the female actor, or the female character, she didn't like that. She gets so offended. And to me, it's a big stereotype on women and how, like, jewelry and stuff like that. And so she gets really offended how this monster starts eating these pearls, and she takes her own vendetta and tries to kill this monster. And I'm just kind of thinking it's very, very stereotypical, very offensive, I think, to women, because, oh yeah, women in jewelry, yeah, she'll kill for it, you know. It's, even if it's a monster, she'll still kill for it, you know. It's just kind of weird. But like, one of the good, like, really good episodes, you know, are just where they're really drama or character driven. You know, like one with Arashi where I think it's called Arashi Don't Shoot or something like that, and he has these orders not to shoot the monster or else the monster will get more aggravated, but then Arashi just gives in and he just shoots him anyways, and then it ends up hurting Hayata and a couple of kids. And then basically what happens is that the captain strips him of his membership or whatever, and he calls him, "You're not fit to be in the science patrol," and it's like, oh, but he quickly joins back up. I don't know. And that was another thing that bugged me about the show. Like, there were a lot of times where I thought a main character was actually going to die. Like, in that episode, I thought Arashi was actually going to die because I thought he was going to sacrifice himself to kill that monster because he felt bad. But Ultraman just came in and saved the day, and it was just kind of like, okay. There was also the other episode where it was on the last disc where the stakes start to get a little bit high because these, all the monsters were coming, like those 60 monsters, and Edie was getting a little bit depressed because Ultraman seemed to be too powerful to where he didn't think the Science Patrol was needed. He just said, when Ultraman shows up, we don't need to do anything. And Hayata's telling him, no, we fight till our best, and then when we can't do anymore, that's when Ultraman comes in. So we fight to do our best, and then there's like this really funny character called Pigman, which is like this weird monster. He's like, "Rrr, rrr, rrr." He's like jumping around, his hands are flopping all over. He has like this frown. He's like, right? It's just the weirdest looking monster. But he gets killed in this one episode. He gets slammed down by a monster, and he's just on the ground like, and then Hayata says, he sacrificed his life for humanity, so how does that make you feel? And he slaps Edie, and it's just like, oh my god, it's like the tensions are high in that episode. I really liked that, but you just have those other episodes that are just not needed, random, and stuff like that, but but when Ultraman does show up, it is pretty cool. It's really cool to see it's cool to see a new show kind of thing. Like, it's cool to see those sound effects, or to hear, not see those sound effects, to hear those sound effects, and to feel like a kid again watching, something that was out in the 60s where, like the stomp sound effects, the explosion sound effects, the monster roars, so cool. And I can't not talk about the episode with Jiras, being that it was a Godzilla suit, only they gave him like a frill on his neck and they changed his color scheme a little bit. That was actually a little bit of an okay episode. I actually really enjoyed that one. I thought it was kind of going to be crap because they were running out of ideas already, but it was actually an alright episode. Like, pretty much, just a scientist birthing a mutant monster, and then he has such an attachment to it, and Ultraman comes over and kills him, and then the scientist is like, no, and, it's actually it's a really cool episode, I think. Yeah, so it's the thing that just bugs me the most about this series was the fact that Ultraman was barely in it, or he was just kind of a side story. It's kind of like in Godzilla with Final Wars. Like, Godzilla was just used as a tool rather than actually being important, and the fights just ending so abruptly. Like, there were some episodes where it just ended. Like, you're just like, what? Like, okay, like, it just ended. The episodes that were really good was like Gamora, when Gamora was first introduced. That was a two-parter episode, and I really liked that because Ultraman actually lost the first round. I like that, that showed that Ultraman can be challenged, that Ultraman can lose. compared to the other monsters that he just slaughters, like, you know. There's also this other really heartwarming episode that I feel when they talk about the kaiju graveyard, and it was a very interesting episode, and it's actually kind of a sad episode. There's this monster that comes back down after hitting a rocket ship that was launched from a whatever launch control center or whatever, and this monster grabs onto it. He looks like he's like pretty much a skeleton, and he comes crashing back down to Earth, and all he wants to do is go back up into space. He literally climbs a building and starts roaring at the sky saying, "Oh, go back." He flaps his arms, he tries to jump off the building, but he just lands on his face. It's really sad. Like, the monster just running, he's just going, like, he goes into like this open field and he's just walking, he just kicks the ground, he's like all mad and depressed, and like, it's just so funny seeing Ultraman. Like, Ultraman kind of kicks his ass at the beginning, but then like Ultraman does this and the monster goes like this. He's like, "No, don't hurt me," and Ultraman's like, and then he tries to get him back to the rocket ship. He starts pushing him and all that. So I mean, like, that episode was pretty interesting, like when they change it up a little bit like that. You know, there's another episode that was really interesting, the episode about this Wu, which was like in this snowy mountain area, and that was kind of an interesting like one to think about. But overall, not a bad way. I guess not a bad or a way to see where Ultraman came from. But but it's not the best in my opinion. Especially seeing some previews of the other seasons and what Ultraman really can do. Like, especially seeing a little bit of the Ultraman Saga movie, or you know, with the character I don't know his name, but he's like the evil Ultraman. Like those look a lot more interesting because they're more focused on Ultraman. They're more focused on the Ultraman universe rather than a bunch of characters, you know, that. Yeah. But you do end up loving the characters. Like, I loved Edie. Hayata was cool. Arashi was cool. Fuji was cool, and the captain was cool. But so, you know, the music was alright too. I mean, the music was classic Showa. Another thing actually that bugged me was the use of monster roars. Like, there were so many reused roars and mixes and stuff like that. Like, I could tell, like, oh, that was like a Godzilla roar, that was like a Rodan or King Caesar, or even King Kong's roar from Godzilla vs. King Kong. Like, it was very weird how they had no creative ability for that. I mean, it wasn't made by Toho, and I know that the special effects guy was the guy who worked in the Showa Godzilla film, so that's how they have the same sound effects, but I still don't understand how they were able to get away with using all those sound effects. I don't know, they must have figured something out between Toho and Tutsuburaya or whatever. But anyway, so overall it's not a bad show. It does have its faults. It's not perfect, but if you're a kaiju collector, I do highly recommend buying it, getting this collector's edition. I think there's actually a Blu-ray. I just saw there's like a Blu-ray collection that's coming out soon, but I don't know if it's going to be released in America. It's probably only for Japan. But overall, it's alright. So I highly recommend getting it, just because it brings you back to the Showa times. It makes you feel like a child again. And there are some really funny parts. So if you can get through the crappy episodes and get to the really good episodes, I can tell you the first couple episodes on the first disc and the last disc have really good episodes. So that's when it starts to get really good. Yeah, so that's pretty much my review of the Ultraman series, the first Ultraman series. So yeah, next up will be Ultra 7, and I'm going to try to get that collection pretty soon. I don't know when. It's like $40, so it might take me a while because I don't really have the money to go out and get just that for a DVD. I don't know, we'll see. So, yeah, until my next review, stay big G fans and Ultra fans.